What's up, y'all? Welcome back to a brand new video. This is going to be episode 2 of a series I'm doing here on my channel of me reviewing other people's favorite movies and then rating them on a scale of 1 to 10. So I just did this with my wife, Destiny. That was the last video that came out. And out of the 10 movies, the total score that her movies got from me was an 85 out of 100, which I think is pretty good. But I guess we'll see when we compare it to the other scores. Today, I'm going to be doing the 10 favorite movies of my brother, Sawyer Wilson. And so when I asked Sawyer to do this list, I kind of had a feeling that of anyone, Sawyer's list would be the most similar to mine, because since we grew up watching the same things and we enjoy similar movies and have similar tastes when it comes to things like that. Now, before we get into the list, I do just want to remind you that this is just a ranking of how much I personally enjoy these movies. So even if it gets a low score, that doesn't mean that I don't think that it should be in this person's top 10 or that they shouldn't enjoy it. It's just based on my enjoyment of it, and that's it. It's just my opinion. Also, Sawyer sent me some honorable mentions here, which I'm not going to review, but I will honorably mention. I will say overall that I do love his honorable mentions, and they are Dune, Air, Inglourious Bastards, Pulp Fiction, The Truman Show, The Avengers, Captain America, Guardians of the Galaxy, and Frozen. So Sawyer sent me his movies right here, ranked from 10 to 1. So I'm just going to do them here in that order. So these are not my rankings from 10 to 1. This is how Sawyer sent it to me of his rankings, and I'm going to review them out of 10 based on that. So at number 10, Sawyer had a movie from this year, 2023. This is the only animated, no, I'm sorry. There's 2 animated movies that made his list. This is one of the 2. And this movie was actually also happened to be in my top 10 favorite movies, and it's my favorite animated movie. It is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. In my video of my top 25, I talked about how Sawyer and I grew up watching and playing with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and that was one of our favorite things. And so we actually went and saw this movie together with our dad, and we just left in awe of how good it was. It's such a fun movie with incredible chemistry between the actors, awesome animation, good action, and it just sets up this new world of the Ninja Turtles so well. And since I've already talked about this movie a couple times, that's all I'm going to say, 10 out of 10. Number 9, Sawyer had Happy Gilmore. So I knew there was going to be an Adam Sandler movie on this list. I just wasn't sure which one. I thought there might even be a couple, but this is the only one on here. But if you asked Sawyer who the best actor ever is, he will say Adam Sandler. And I'm not gonna get into that take right now. If you can talk to him about that if you want. But this is definitely one of the most Adam Sandler's performances. Me personally, I enjoy Adam Sandler movies. I think he's pretty funny, and I enjoy his brand of humor for the most part. Most of his movies I'll enjoy. It also has a strong supporting cast. It has very memorable, silly gags, though sometimes it does get a little too silly. But I mean, that's kind of what you're wanting from this movie, so I think it's good. I think Shooter McGavin is one of the best comedy villains in movies, and it's just overall, it's just a really great movie. Me personally, I would give it an 8 out of 10. At number 8, we have Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. So I love Harry Potter. It's my favorite movie series, and it was number 4 on my list was Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2, so the finale. Goblet of Fire is definitely a strong entry. And to me, it does the most actual like world building of the wizarding world, other than the first movie where it introduces us to everything. To me, Goblet of Fire does the most world building. It's a real turning point in the series. It's where it takes on a much. I know there's scary moments in the first 3 movies, but it's when it switches a little bit to where the stakes feel a lot higher since the return of Voldemort, and it also takes on more of a mature feel, where the characters are having to deal with more mature topics and things like that. I also do think it's one of the funnier Harry Potter movies, even though it is a little more mature and a little darker, and I really enjoy it. I would give it not a complete 10, but a 9.5 out of 10. And why don't I just give it a 10? I don't know, because this is what I do. Number 7, Avengers Endgame, 10 out of 10. This is my favorite movie ever. I'm not sure what else I even need to say about it. I've talked about it multiple times. It's the best ending of any movie saga, of any movie series to me. It has so much payoff. There's great action, one of the best ensemble casts ever assembled, and it has hilarious lines. 10 out of 10 Avengers Endgame. I love that movie. Number 6, my second favorite movie of all time, Forrest Gump, which I think is the best movie ever. Remember, I think there's a big difference between the best and someone's favorites. It's my second favorite movie, and I think it's the best movie. It's such an epic story with so many memorable moments, so many memorable characters, with the supporting cast of Gary Sinise and Sally Field and Robin Wright and McKelty Williamson. And obviously Tom Hanks gives one of the best acting performances ever. I think his best acting performance, which says a lot because it's Tom Hanks. And it's beautifully written. The cinematography is so done. It's so well edited. It's such a perfect movie to me. And I would give it a 10 out of 10. So with 10 through 6, Sawyer here is already coming in pretty strong. Now, number 5, we have Rocky. So Rocky is definitely one of the most inspirational movies there is. It's one of the best sports movies. Though I will say for me, sports movies are not one of my favorite genres, even though I love sports and I love movies. I'll enjoy a good sports movie, but I think that it's easy for a sports movie to suck, if that makes sense. But anyways, back to Rocky. It is the best training montage in any movie. It has a great soundtrack. Literally, when I had plans to watch Rocky later that day, I was driving to work and I was humming the theme song. It set up a great franchise. There are definitely some negatives, though, to Rocky. It hasn't aged super well. The acting, for the most part, is good, especially with... just forgot his name. With, let me think for a second. Especially from Carl Weathers, and there's a lot of great actors in it. Though Sylvester Stallone, to me, almost feels like the weakest actor in the movie, which obviously he gets the most screen time and he's the main character. Rocky as a character is pretty hit or miss from scene to scene on whether or not he's endearing and likable or just kind of strange to me. But I will say I do love the fact that at the end, spoiler for this movie that came out in the 70s, that he doesn't win, just because it kind of changes it up from the typical feel-good movie, though it does still feel good because it's such a close loss. I think that there are better movies in this franchise. I would say my favorite is probably Rocky 4 off the top of my head. But I still think this is a very solid movie, and I would give it a 7 out of 10. Number 4, we have one of the most underrated Disney movies of all time, Emperor's New Groove. So this one, I'll say, it shocked me a little bit that it was in Sawyer's top 10 when he sent me the list. But then when I thought about it, it made sense, because this was, I think that, well, I don't want to speak for him, but I think this was probably his favorite movie as a kid. I remember we just referred to this movie, I referred to it because this is what Sawyer called it, and I just copied him, as the llama movie, and he just loved that movie. I enjoy it. It's really hilarious. It has great voice acting. It has funny, intriguing characters that are very memorable, and all the characters go through this roller coaster with Cusco. You never know if he's actually redeemed or if he's just doing it for himself until the very end. You know he's redeemed. And then Pacha and his family are very sweet. Yzma is an awesome Disney villain. Kronk is one of the funniest Disney characters. He's so funny, and Patrick Warburton's voice is so iconic. I always associate it with Kronk anytime I hear him talk. It has catchy music. And to me, the biggest plus with this movie is how self-aware it is, with the breaking of the fourth wall and different things. It's just such a self-aware movie, and I love that. To me, this isn't an elite top-tier Disney movie, but like I said, I think it's probably the most underrated. I would give it a 7.5 out of 10. Number 3 is Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. So, of the original Star Wars movies, this is my favorite, though I talked about in my video. My favorite Star Wars movie is Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. But Return of the Jedi is just a great ending to the trilogy, and I know the story does continue with the sequels and the TV shows that are coming out now, but it does feel like just such a strong ending for the character of Anakin. And I know Luke and Leia and Han, they're in the next movies, but it also just feels like a good conclusion for them. If I was watching it again for the first time, the ambiguity of Luke and whether or not he's going to join Darth Vader or not, this pull between him and the dark and the light would just kill me. I think that there's so many things that they set up that are just like, since everyone that's going to watch this movie pretty much already knows the story, they already know the story of Star Wars, that they're underappreciated, like the moments of, this is the first time that we had seen a green lightsaber. So we didn't immediately associate that with the good guys. We just knew blue was good, red was bad. Well, what the heck is green? And now we obviously know that green is just another Jedi color. And then with Luke wearing black for a majority of the movie, but then when we see that he isn't going to the dark side, some white shows on his clothing. I just think there are so many minor details like that. Like, there's a lot of minor stuff always in Star Wars movies in the background, so much stuff happening. And to me, this one has the best stuff like that from a storytelling aspect. There's just so many fun things. Sometimes Star Wars can have a little too much going on. Like, I think that's a big negative for a lot of people with the prequels, is there's so much going on. There's so many goofy characters in the background. Like, there's just too much going on. But for me, Return of the Jedi doesn't really do that. I know there's a lot of characters and there's a lot of people in, like, the Jabba the Hutt scenes and different things like that. But it never gets overwhelming. I will say, if I'm going to watch this movie, which, I mean, you can't really do this now unless you have a way to find it, I would prefer to watch the original edition and not the extended edition with more recent additions. But 9 out of 10 for Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. Number 2, I don't get this. I don't get this movie at all. I don't like this movie. It's Taxi Driver. You know, I normally try to be optimistic, and I try to highlight the good in these movies. I'll say the good thing in this movie is Robert De Niro, because he's Robert De Niro. Everything else about this movie is straight cheeks. I'm not even going to lie to you. I do not like this movie. Sawyer has a lot of great picks here, so many movies that I love, and then there's Taxi Driver. Every time I watch this movie, which is only twice, which I had watched it before and was like, wow, that sucked. Then I watched it again yesterday for this video, and I was like, this is going to be better. Like, I knew it was one of Sawyer's favorite movies. The first time I watched it, I didn't like it. I was like, maybe since I have a better appreciation of movies now, I'll like it. I still didn't like it. I don't understand it at all. I don't understand the hype. It's so boring to me. The pacing is so weird. There's so many unnecessary things in it, but I don't like this movie. I'm sorry. 3 out of 10, which is the lowest rating. I know this is only the second video, but that is by far the lowest rating that I've given any of these movies. And to me, that might even be a little generous. Now, number 1, of course, this is Sawyer's favorite movie. It is Elf. If you know him, it makes sense. I think one time I asked Sawyer, what would your spirit animal be? I think I asked him that on Pillow Talk one time, and he said Buddy the Elf. And so I don't think he completely understood the question, or maybe he just understood it better than I thought he did. But it is one of my favorite movies. It's featured in my top 10. It's the best Christmas movie. I think it's the funniest Christmas movie, and I've said a couple times that I think it's the funniest movie ever. It was also in Destiny's top 10, so this is my 3rd time reviewing Elf. So it's Will Ferrell at his best with a lot of other memorable characters. It's extremely quotable. I mean, I know I hear Destiny quoting it throughout the year, and it's just such a quotable movie. It has such a high rewatchability, which is huge for me. So I give Elf a 10 out of 10. Now, I already added this up. I'm going to do the mental math here real quick just to make sure that I was correct, and I'm going to read the scores back to you guys just a quick review. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem, I gave a 10. Maybe I'll read them to you. Happy Gilmore, I gave an 8. Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, I gave a 9.5. Avengers Endgame, of course, I gave a 10. Forrest Gump, of course, I gave a 10. So like I said, those first 5 right there are really strong. Then this is where it gets a little iffy. At Rocky, I gave it a 7. Emperor's New Groove, like I said, underrated, but a 7.5. Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, I gave a 9. Taxi Driver, I gave a 3, and I think that might be a little too high, but I'm just going to stick with it. And Elf, I gave a 10. I'm just going to make sure I had it right here. An 84 out of 100 for Sawyer. I mentioned in my previous video that I gave Destiny's Top 10 an 85 out of 100. So she beat Sawyer by 1 point. But I will say I do think 84 and 85 are both very good scores. Um, I just I think that those will be two of the highest that I do. Um, Other than my own top 10 would obviously be a 100 out of 100, but I don't, off the top of my head, I can't think of anyone else who would maybe get this high, but maybe I'll be surprised. I think an 84 is still a really strong score. And it's the second highest score so far, but I guess this is only the second video, so it's also the lowest score so far. But we'll see how it matches up compared to others. And I'm glad it didn't beat Destiny, because then she would have been kind of mad at me. So that worked out really well for me. And I mean, that's all I have to say. Overall, I enjoy these movies, other than Taxi Driver sucks. But all of these other movies I really enjoy. Even Sawyer's honorable mentions, I think they're all really fun movies and I enjoy them. Stay tuned for the next video. I don't know if it'll be my next video, but the next review like this I do will be from my mom and her top 10 favorite movies. But that's all I have for you right now. So I hope you enjoyed this video and stay tuned for the next one.